everyone. My name is Ava Nicole Francis, and I'm here with Chris Ruetten for the lineup interview series. Chris, thanks so much for coming on.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Ava. This is
Of
so fun.
course, of course. And we're so excited to have you on the lineup. So I know we've seen each other at the lineup a bunch, but you're usually taking the pictures of it when I see you there.
Yeah, yeah.
Is this your first time performing on the lineup?
This is my first time as an actual member of the lineup, which is very exciting.
That's so
I think over the years, Susie was like, when are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? And we finally got to the point where we made it happen. So this will
nice.
be the first time I'll be a performer. I actually checked this before the interview. I've shot 23 lineups so far.
Oh my
So
God.
at this point, I was subbing for different people that couldn't make it over the last couple of years. And so I've gotten to know you and like a bunch of performers that have come back multiple times. So it'll be fun to like be behind the microphone this time. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, you're getting your picture taken this time.
I love that.
I know. Okay, so let's pull it all the way back to the beginning. When did you first realize that you wanted to do like performing and acting as a career?
Totally. So I, as many people do, start singing in church and start out there. They would do these like little children's musicals that had, religious undertones for sure, but were like little mini musicals that the children's choir would put on. So that kind of got me in front of people and performing. And my mom, from an early age, always wanted me to perform. But I think I saw The Wizard of Oz in like third or fourth grade, and the Scarecrow, who actually I ended up being double casted with as Peter Pan many years later. She was just absolutely phenomenal, and her performance itself like inspired me to be like, what is going on here? And like, how do I be a part of this? And I didn't even know that this is a real thing. And so I signed up for the next show, Aladdin Jr. And then ever since then, I've been doing musical theater. And I did my first professional show in San Diego where I grew up, Spring Awakening at Signet Theater. And that was 7 shows a week and with a great cast. And it was just a dream to be in that show and to be, quote, a professional actor. And ever since then, it's kind of been the goal. I went to Northwestern for musical theater and theater after that and studied it there and try to do as much theater as you can. But as you know, there's a lot of people doing this and it's a hard kind of industry to um, participate in. So I'm doing as much theater as I can, but the photography luckily is a great parallel career to kind of support the flexibility I need to audition and write.
Yeah. So how did the photography side of it start then?
Yeah, so like I think it was my freshman year of high school is like when Instagram was starting to become a thing. And me and my guy friends were like really obsessed with like oversaturating photos on Snapseed and stuff and just
Mhm.
trying to one up each other with photography. And we kind of did that for several years. And then my parents got me my first DSLR, um, a Canon T5 Rebel, I think, between my junior and senior year of high school. And then once I got that camera, I was just like full on San Diego Tumblr boy mode, where I was
Wow.
just taking photos of everything and doing multiple shoots a day. And then through college, people needed headshots to audition for the school shows. And I started doing that. And my graduation present is the camera that I use now professionally. So my parents bought me that second camera to get me started. And that's been my little workhorse for the last like 8 or 9 years.
Oh, I love that. And it's good that your parents support it too. Um,
Yeah, I don't know if I think retrospectively, they might have not wanted to. I mean, they like that I'm doing photography, but the hard thing is like it's an artist career supporting another artist career. So
yeah.
it's very uncertain and very, it's yeah, it's uncertain, I'd say. And just I don't know where my next jobs are coming from until like that month. So I'm just constantly like praying for referrals and hoping that, word of mouth gets around. And luckily, after being here for 5.5 years, it feels like that career is like fully in motion. I would like the musical theater to be happening more, but I think that's a common feeling that most people have.
Yeah, totally. Well, maybe the lineup can help you. Who knows?
This is my big break, baby. The
I
line.
know.
Yeah.
So, like you had said, you're originally from San Diego, but now you're fully based here. Has living here changed how you see your art or yourself, both either photography or performance wise?
Yeah, so I knew that I needed to move to New York to kind of be where musical theater was happening at the highest level. And so that kind of motivated the move. I think in California, I was able to find like a corporate company that really needed my photography internally, like kind of constantly, which kind of paid for my life. But the beauty of New York photography is that every day I'm doing something completely different. So like one day I'm doing headshots, another day I'm in like an OR with a plastic surgeon, another day I'm shooting like the NASDAQ opening bell for an IPO for, a company. Or I'm like backstage at Fashion Week shooting models and hairstylists and makeup artists, like getting ready for like shows and stuff. So I think being here, getting to see all the theater, because when you're on the West Coast, you don't get to see a Broadway show every other weekend. And I had friends that grew up here in New York. And when you're constantly inspired by things at the highest level, then I think so much of being an artist is how much you consume and ingest. And then you're able to give, and then you're able to like kind of put what you want into the world. And so being here specifically just gives me fodder to create. And I'm inspired by friends that are in shows. I'm inspired by, plays when I'm writing my musical. I think, all of it kind of feeds together. And I also think people in New York are just getting a lot more done. And this is no hate on California or Los Angeles or LA, but there's very of like a mindset here of like have it on my desk tomorrow morning versus LA's a little bit like, oh, we'll talk about that next weekend.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so it does feel like a workforce town, and like everyone, no matter who you are, is hustling. Even the people that have made it are hustling, and we're all just, really throwing stuff at the wall. So I really appreciate that part of New York for sure.
for sure. So you mentioned your the original works that you have written, including the test and tennis. Both of them seem to take on like really deep topics. What inspired that? But also, can you tell us a little bit about what those projects are?
Yeah, I think theater is deep inherently, right? And when we go see things, there's a lot of trauma that's being worked through by the writer. But I think, I've never felt like a comedian. I've never felt like someone that knows how to work a joke or make people laugh. And when I'm an actor, I feel like my way of being funny is playing true to the character and being kind of serial comedic. So I'm not really here to write funny shows. I like my shows to have levity and jokes and, moments of not like kind of deep issues. But I think as a writer, you have to write what you know. And for me, I write most when I need to express something, when I am usually hurting emotionally. And I know a lot of, writers identify with that as well. My partner, Mark, is a very different person in his creation, and he's also going to be on this lineup, which is very exciting for both of us to be there. But he'll write a song every day, every week, and I'll write a song when I'm like, at rock bottom a little bit.
Felt
But
girl.
the test is basically a story about six characters in the Palo Alto Bay Area, California area that are at like a really elite, academically driven private school. And the year before, a suicide cluster has occurred where three students have jumped in front of the Caltrain. And that area has definitely struggled with that. It's not based on a true story, but at a lot of these really elite, private high schools, boarding schools, the best in the country, mental health is like a huge issue. And I think even these schools, instead of addressing it, they'll ask the student to leave campus, or they don't want to be responsible for what could potentially happen. And this show, the test, is almost like an opposite response to that they're going to administer a suicide risk awareness test that identifies students that are at high risk, to pair them with mental health services and to really identify the students that are struggling. But because LGBT youth are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide, it also inadvertently identifies a student's gender identity and sexuality, which is considered maybe ethical or non-ethical based on, how you feel about that. And some of the characters are grappling with, you know, the results of that test. Some people, it's completely validating and completely makes them feel like secure in their identity. For other people, it blindsides them. And for the people that aren't able to take the test, they kind of look at these students or look at those people and wish that they had that certainty. And so when I kind of was dealing with my sexuality, the test also represents this kind of like concrete and innate like decision that I wasn't able to make, that felt like it wasn't my choice to, quote, be gay or be queer. So that's that one, which is not light reading, right? But that one's been in development for like 9 years. And I think when you tell people outside of the industry that you've been working on a musical for that long, they're like, holy crap. But when you're like in the industry, people are like, you're just getting started,
Yeah,
babe.
but yeah, buckle in, buddy.
Exactly. They're like, all right, you're in like, yeah, you're like 1/3 of the way in. So it's been a long journey and we've changed it a lot. And my co-writer is in Stranger Things right now, Allison J. She's playing Joyce Maldonado and the Joyce Winona Ryder character. And so we've been working on that tirelessly for the last, 2 or 3 years, and we've brought on directors to work with us. So it's moving, but at a glacial pace. And the tennis play called Tennis, I used to play tennis at a very high level in California. And I was watching the US Open this last year and I was like, tennis is theater. Like they
Mhm.
literally prepared and they're showing up and they have to live moment to moment, ball to ball, and they don't know what's going to happen. And everyone's watching, and, their character and their ability to keep their cool is completely on display. And I really like, with how subjective this industry is and how subjective theater is in general, like the idea of a ball being in or out and winning a point, yes or no, and that's finite, was something that I really missed. And I was like, what if I could find a way to play tennis every night on stage and also do theater and be in a play? So act two of the play is an actual real tennis set. And the entire play takes place on a real tennis court, and the audience will be set up on either side. Obviously, this is an idea, and we could do it at like the shed or some place that has high ceilings and big spaces, but it's more of an exercise for me to have just like more pieces and more like different stories in my arsenal as a writer, instead of just putting all of my eggs into this basket. And that's just been really therapeutic to write as well, because I'm just exploring a lot of my inner child and what it means to love yourself, but also to not be a victim. And I think there's like a really fine line between that. So exploring that has been um, weirdly timely when I'm dealing with the things I am in my life and with my parental relationships and trying to navigate, like, how do I show up for my parents, but also, honor who I am as a person and have self-love. So sorry for that long-winded answer.
No, not at all. I think both of those are really original ideas, and I mean, props to you for that. I think the test specifically, like I grew up in San Francisco, so all my like a ton of my friends are from Palo Alto, and so I mean, I hear about that stuff all the time, and I know, all of that and what's going on. So that's a very like big and real thing to take on.
Yeah.
And also like that would be lovely to have, like to have
Yeah.
a test like that. Like that'd be helpful, you
Yeah.
know.
I think I was like hesitant to like write another musical that's set in high school.
Mhm.
And then I kind of had this realization. I'm like, everything's in high school. Like, it's like, oh, another high school musical. And I'm like, okay,
That's
we
when
got
the world ends.
Heathers, we have High School Musical, like even like Wednesday on Netflix is set in high school,
Yeah, Mean
So
Girls. Yeah.
exactly. So I don't think we're over that, but I think, you know, I really want to go there to a dark place because like the LGBT path is dark, no matter who you are and where you come from, even if you grow up in New York, even if you grow up in San Francisco, just because you're in like, quote, an accepting environment doesn't mean that you're going to be able to accept that for yourself. And and in ways like my co-writers and collaborators have encouraged me to like not go fully dark or fully there. And I'm always hesitant to move that line because I'm like, I don't want to make this more palatable just because people don't want to go there, when there is like the reality for so many people under 18. Like there's
Yeah.
children dealing with living with a secret every day of their life. There's children that are lying to everyone in their life daily, and that like takes a toll. Like you can't align, you can't like, you know step into yourself if you're constantly, you know if you're constantly, I don't want to say lying, like I
Yeah.
don't have to go into that, but like
Yeah.
when you're not being impeccable with your word daily, that affects you, and it affects everything, I think.
Yeah, and why does the audience get like the privilege of not going there when the kids going through it don't even get that?
Exactly. I'm like, you can go there for 2 hours if
Yeah, you
these
can go there for 2 hours. You can live in it for an uncomfortable 2 hours, and then
yeah, if these
guess
kids
what it
if
would be like to live like that your whole life.
Exactly. And that's what I want people to leave with, is not like this story of like, it gets better,
Yeah.
like I want people to go like, whoa, like I didn't realize that, children were going through this.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and that kind of led like perfectly into my next thing is when you deal with such, intense personal topics and stuff like that, it's a lot can come at you. So, A, what do you do to like stay grounded while taking on such an emotionally heavy topic? But then also like what would you hope that the audience can take from that and like what they can continue onward with?
yeah, I think like luck with the test, there's several. I kind of want it to be like Rent, where you care about all of them, but it's more about painting this larger picture rather than being like, we need to focus on just like Roger or just Mark. It's like I want people to pick their favorite, where they're like, I love Collins, or I'm a Collins, I'm an Angel. And so with my play, I get to like put myself into all of them, which kind of splits me into all these people that kind of, then they're like all me but not me, which is a little safer of a place to be. But I think with tennis, when I'm dealing with a mother and a father and I'm writing from a place of where I came from, like my dad is completely supportive of my theater career in this play and loves talking about it with me, and we have a great relationship. But I can see him like wincing when the father's being stereotypical or being painted as a bad person, and I'm having to be like, yo dad, it's a play, like it's not about you. But then it is,
Yeah.
because like I'm not going to just completely write from a place I don't know. And my goal here isn't to like expose my parents, or like we all have these complicated relationships with our parents, especially if we're queer. But I think that's where it gets a little like, okay, I have to protect my family from feeling like I'm completely outing all of their behaviors and quirks and things that I don't enjoy. But you know I think that's what it's like to be close to a writer. I think when people, like Josh Harmon, for example, when people come to his play and they are related to him, they probably are like thinking like, oh shoot, I might have said that, or like that's where he got that moment from. Um, but I think the more specific you are, the more you resonate. And I know that's been thrown around a lot and kind of cliche at this point, but when I'm always aiming for how can I be like, what makes me and my friends laugh? Like, what's the way that me and my friends talk that nobody else talks this way? And I think when they see that, because it's specific and not just general high school talk, then they resonate because they're like, oh, me and my friend had that inside joke too. And we refer to this as a certain thing. So I think the more specific I can be about my pain, the more it will resonate with others.
Hmm. Cool. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back around to just real quick to the photography aspect of everything again. Um, what do you love most about capturing people in that way? Because clearly you can write a character, and that's one way of capturing somebody and an essence of somebody. What do you like about the literal capturing of that?
So the benefit of having the camera I have and the years of just editing thousands and thousands of photos is usually people are not captured with the right emotion or on a nice enough camera in most aspects of their life. So usually I am presenting them a photo with the best they've ever seen themselves look. And I'm not trying to say that in like a cocky way, but just like in a factual way that we're used to seeing ourselves on iPhones or bad angles or with bad lighting or being on like the peripheral of a photo that's like warping our entire face. And people are deciding in their lives that they're not photogenic without even seeing themselves captured on the right lens and the right lighting and natural light. So my favorite part about capturing people is that gift, right? Because I'm used to doing it all the time, but when you get a nice photo of yourself, it feels good, you know? You're like, "Hell yeah, I ate that." You know, like I look amazing. Like I want to post this. When I see my clients post photos and they're getting the most likes that they've ever gotten on socials, like that really makes me happy. I also like find myself smiling while I'm editing photos, which means that like this definitely is still enjoyable. I also think though when you've done it for, 10,000 hours, like it's become a technical skill. It doesn't like I'm definitely still personable and I get to meet new people when I have a headshot client in my studio here in my apartment. I get to learn from them and sometimes they're composers or authors or screenplay writers or actors and I get to like learn about people and the industry and how this stuff works. So that's a huge benefit to like kind of cross pollinate both careers. But I rarely bring my camera out anymore for fun. And that's okay. I think when your passion becomes your work, it changes, and I think, as a singer and being on Idol, like when you're like showing up for cameras at a certain time and you got to wake up and you got to warm up and yeah, you're doing the whole thing. It's like you're like, "Oh, this takes away a little bit from the singing and the joy of singing, but that's normal, I think. I think it's normal for passions to change and morph, especially when you're monetizing. So, um, I think with a character, you know, it's like they're defined by what they say, and you never know when you're writing what's going to come. Like you can sit down and have an idea for a scene, and then somehow I'll just start being in the flow and I'll visualize it. And then I already know what they're saying next.
Yeah.
I'm almost like watching it and typing what's happening and listening rather than going, now she's going to say this because this will say this about her. It's just
Right.
you kind of get in this flow. And a lot of writers talk about the muses and like coming down and not taking credit for the art, but that we're just the channel for it. And I think the more you write, the more chances the muses have to go like, hey, you're showing up, like, hey, you're doing the work. And then they come and then you're like, I'm improvising on the piano a song, and I'm like 80% of the song was just written in that one improvisation.
Yes.
And so that's where like the kind of mystical and like cool part of that can, emerge.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm so happy that you're doing all of these things that you like. I'm happy the muses are with you. Um, I hope to continue to see them with you in everything that you have coming up. Do you have anything coming up next? And
I have the lineup on November 4th, which I'm
woo!
so stoked about. I've never performed in Green Room 42. I've shot Green Room 42, so I'm excited to perform there.
Well,
But yeah, that is what's coming up for me. Other than that, I have photography gigs, but I think you're kind of more referring to like, performance
Performances.
moments. Ideally, I'm getting the test up next year for like a staged reading or something, or finding a theater that has a developmental program. But other than that, nope, I'm just
The
doing the line.
lineup. Fantastic. Well, I'll be sure to keep an eye out for the test as soon as it comes out and as soon as it does its thing, because that sounds really exciting. I'm really, really happy for you.
Thank you. It's a long road, but I think it'll be worth it, I think so.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on and for chatting. And I'm so excited to see you on the lineup. I'll be there on November 4th. And for anybody watching, keep an eye out for Chris and everything that he does. And then, of course, come see him and everybody else on the lineup this Tuesday on November 4th.
Amazing. Thank you, Ava. You're so sweet and you're so awesome for doing this. It's
Oh,
just a
you.
cool thing. So thanks for adding this to the lineup. It's a fun thing to do. So
Of course. I'm happy to do it. Well, I will see you on Tuesday.
see you on Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye.